Hello, my name is Tylluan. I'm a solitary pagan witch, I'm an author and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press. And today's little chat is about magical doodling. And you probably think I really am losing the plot now, talking about doodling and magic in the same breath, but I'm not. There's been a great surge of late with things like colouring books, which are supposed to calm us down and keep us all in a relaxed frame of mind. And they are on to something. I mean, anybody who's ever sat with a child and coloured in, it is very relaxing. The trouble with some colouring books, however, is that they are so detailed, they actually defeat the object. Because the object has to be that we are a little bit more relaxed at the end of it, not that we have screwed ourselves up trying to concentrate in something like that. Now, there are times when we don't have a colouring book, children's book or adults, and we just have a bit of paper, back of an envelope, something like that, and probably a biro. And what happens? We start to doodle. Now, I am a terrible doodler, I must tell you this before we start. I am, awful, honestly. I mean, nothing. When I was a child, nothing was safe from me. You could always tell where I'd been. There was graffiti and doodles and, if there was a blank space somewhere, I would have drawn on it. That's just the way I was. But sometimes you can use these doodles very creatively. I used to find, for example, when I was in school, I used to do all my history notes as doodles. Instead of actually writing very much down, I would draw something. And the memory of what the teacher was saying at the time I was drawing was imprinted mentally on the picture I drew. So, for example, my teacher might be telling me about, Queen Elizabeth I, right? And I would be drawing a Viking ship, which has nothing to do with Queen Elizabeth. But I would be drawing this very detailed Viking ship. But even a year or so later, when I came back to my notes, I would see that Viking ship and I would remember everything the teacher had said that day. It wasn't magic, it's just focus and concentration. And it's a very, very useful skill to have. Why? Because symbolism is, it's a shorthand. The reason we use symbols for things is because it saves us having to explain. And if you have a group of people who know your history, who know you well, there is a shorthand even in the things you say to each other. I mean, for example, if Mr. Penry talks about pigs, he isn't talking about pigs that go oink oink. He's talking about the day he proposed to me, which had nothing to do with pigs. There weren't any pigs about. But I know that's what he's talking about. And if, for example, somebody talks about sandwiches, they might not be talking about sandwiches at all. It's a shorthand for something else. And if we're very astute, we begin to realise that people very rarely say what they mean. It's one of the problems if you take things very literally. Some people do take things literally and they really can't cope with this kind of mental gymnastics, and it's very hard for them because it's almost like everything's in code and they've got to decipher it. So you do have to be careful then. You mustn't play games, word games, if you know the other person really can't understand it. But if you do know the other person can understand it, it becomes a very useful, very lively way of saying things without actually going into all the detail. And the same with doodling. We can doodle and we can put this kind of mental gymnastic into the doodle. It doesn't have to be a drawing of a Viking ship, it can just be a pattern. In fact, I've found patterns, especially done in biro, because you can go from the very light, where the biro is almost grey or pale blue, to very, very dark and heavy, where the colour is as intense as it can be. And you can really impress it into the paper, whatever it is you've got on your mind. And it can be used in spell work, you see. You can be, for example, if you have a problem, supposing you have a problem, not the sort you revise for in an exam, but a problem, something that's worrying you. And you're sitting there thinking about it or talking about it with other people, and you doodle, doodle, doodle while you do it. And you're drawing rectangles and squares and diamond shapes and circles and all sorts of bits and bobs and curly bits and what have you. And you've talked yourself to a standstill, or you've run out of paper, one or the other. But that piece of paper that you've been doodling on actually encompasses all your worries, all your ideas, all your concerns about the problem, all your possible solutions. So what you do then is you take the paper, I find is best, on any space you can. Hopefully they've left the reverse side blank, which is much better, but you write the name of the people you were trying to help in this spell somewhere on the piece of paper, and you fold it up. And what I try and do is I fold it lengthwise and then twist it around so that the one folds into the other. You try somehow to hold it together. That's the thing. And then that is your spell. You can actually work on that. That encapsulates it. Then you can work with the breath, blowing towards you, blowing away from you, trying to make it shrink the problem, trying to make it get bigger so something improves. And it's a very, very useful way to do it. A lot of people don't try that anything like enough. Very powerful way to work your magic. Anyway, I hope you find it helpful. I'm not about teaching you, oh, here's a spell, write it down, get half a dozen blue candles and away you go. No, no, no. That's not how it's done. Not in my world. I hope you find it useful. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.